I just got back from Mendocino, and we have a whole bunch of really cool mushrooms on the board. And I'm joined here by Alan Rockefeller. Say hi.
Hi.
And we're going to go over stuff that's on the board and just kind of tell you about it and describe a little bit about what we did the past couple of days. So there are mostly edible mushrooms on the board here because that's what I brought home. While we were up in Mendo, we had a bunch of other stuff that was non-edible, and we were documenting, and Alan did a bunch of vouchering for sequencing and microscopy, and we played around with UV light. But pretty much everything on the board in front of you is edible, so we're just going to start chatting about it. Alan, what do you call these guys, these weird little things?
That's Rhizopogon occidentalis.
So I call these Rhizopogon, but Alan has a way cooler pronunciation, Rhizopogon. I'm going to try to remember that. I'm going to watch this later so I can learn all about Rhizopogon.
Yeah.
So what are these? These are like little associated
They're basically
with
a
pine trees?
swillus that never opens up.
Oh, so they're in the Swillus genus?
No.
No.
They're Rhizopogon.
Okay, well, I mean, but they're like in the family of Swillus? Or in Boletaceae?
Boletes.
Okay, Boletales.
Yeah.
So I know that like Swillus are usually really important mycorrhizal partners for pines, and these are too. Right?
Yeah, you'll find those with pine.
Okay. Is there any reason that Swillus and like Rhizopogon are so essential to like pine trees?
It's really hard to ask them.
It's a good point. Pine trees don't talk much. They're trees of few words. Let's see what else we got. This is a cool one. This is a Phylloporus? Or
Phylloporus erinicola. I think it's the only Phylloporus we have in California.
Cool. So this is a bolete that re-evolved gills.
Yep.
And it is edible. It's pretty decent. This one's a little, torn up, but it's pretty cool. We have these big, beautiful, what is called scaber stalks, or lexinums. Let me pick one up and give a little pat so you guys can hear the thumps there. You want to give this a pat?
Of course, yeah.
There's solid. See?
Yeah,
Alan
that
gives
makes a good noise.
Good pats, right? It is. I mean, it's kind of corny, but it's also kind of fun, And like what I love about it is every single mushroom has its own unique like resonance. You come home and you tap
It's
all of
much
them.
higher frequency.
Right, exactly. Higher frequency. You tap one of these like tiny little tiny little immature ones, and it sounds very different. And then there's this huge one, and so it'll sound
It sounds like a drum.
yeah, much more hollow. And that has all to do with like the density of that mushroom tissue, right? How close together the cells are, and the resonance it's giving.
How much they've expanded.
Yeah. So these are I call these like apple bleats or Lexinum manzanitae because I usually find them under manzanita or madrone. Do you know anything else about these genetically or species in California?
No.
No. Okay. You're not really that worried about boletes most of the time, right? You're more interested in more interesting species to some degree, or
I like them all,
Okay.
but you usually don't get PCR success from Lexinum.
oh, really? Okay, so those are particularly hard to sequence.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And then this is Xerocamella, so it has this beautiful red stem. Ooh, excuse me. Red stem, beautiful yellow pores that stain a little bit blue. It's kind of velvety top. And these are edible. They're not great, but they're decent. And the species this is Xerocamellus.
Atropurpureus.
Okay, I have trouble saying that one, so I'll defer to you on a lot of these science names. This is a beautiful red coral. I absolutely love this one. It's an edible one. I tend to find it in like tan oak habitat, but do you see it sort of associate with other trees or conifers or?
There was hemlock.
Hemlock,
Around
okay.
where I was finding a lot of them,
Yeah.
but they could
Makes
be
sense.
tan oak associated too.
Yeah. And this is Romeria
Ariospora.
ariospora. Okay, and I know there's like two varieties, one that's a little bit more red and one that turns a little more pink.
Supposedly, I'll
Yeah.
believe it when I see it.
So until you sequence it or until you see it?
Both.
Both. Okay. Do you in a variety between like if there are two varieties of this per se, do you think the two varieties would come out differently from sequencing?
They could, but they might not.
Okay, so it might be like a visual difference that we're catching on more than an actual genetic difference.
Or there could be a genetic difference. There's some genes that we're not sequencing.
True, right? Because in an ITS, it's just a little fingerprint instead of like looking at the whole body.
I mean, the thing for me would be to see how many intergrading things there are. Like if they pretty much like fall into two big categories, then I would say, okay, there's two varieties. And if they're like completely intergrade from one color to the other, which is kind of what I think I notice, then I'd be like, okay, it's not.
Okay, fair. We have kind of the classic Porcini King Bolete. This is Boletes edgeless var grand edgeless, I think. Where we are.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is one that's growing here under pine in California, and often it is found in association with our friend Amanita muscaria. So generally, if you see a lot of muscaria around, you should be looking for these boletes. I do find that boletes come up when it's a little warmer, and so this year we had early rain, we got a big flush of boletes, and then it got colder when we had more rain, so we're starting to see more muscaria, but far fewer porcini. So that's sort of one thing to keep an eye on, is there's a number of mushrooms that are associated in the same habitat as these edible boletes, but just because this is there doesn't always mean that that's there. Although we did find these types of things pretty close together, so in that sense it was a good test of what we were looking for. What are these weirdo things?
That's Krugomphis.
So are these edible?
Yes, probably something around Krugomphis vinicolor.
Okay.
And when you cook them up, they turn into purple slugs in the pan. So I don't know who doesn't like purple slugs. I'm sure most people like purple slugs.
So these mushrooms are if you cut them open, they're kind of orange inside, and if you put KOH on them, they turn really purple. But Alan's saying that if we cook them, they'll also turn really purple, but probably lose
like the same thing they do like when you put KOH on them.
Yeah. So, but probably lose a lot of texture too, and they get kind of like soggy, slippery.
They don't have a lot of texture to start with.
Yeah. I've heard some people say they're good. I've heard some people say they're mediocre. Anytime I ever post and say it's mediocre, someone's like, "No, I love these." And I'm like, "Okay."
It depends entirely on the skill of the chef.
Right, and your preference as a taster too,
Yeah.
right? So that's a big one. I picked a bunch of these because I'm thinking about drying them, so that's why I brought a good amount home. Because someone who does fiber arts was saying, "Hey, I want to dye stuff purple with them." And I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll pick some." This is another mushroom that people use to dye with. So this is Cortinarius smithii, or at least in the group of that.
Cortinarius smithii. Sensu stricto.
Okay, I see. So yeah, the sensu stricto part. Can you explain when you say sensu stricto after a species name, what does that mean?
In the
to
strict
people?
sense, so it means that this is really Cortinarius smithii and not some sister species.
So if you say in sensu stricto means in the strict sense, so it means definitely Cortinarius smithii. Whereas if you had Cortinarius smithii sensu lato, that means in the general, the loose
in
sense,
the broad sense.
in the broad sense.
Yeah.
So
if it didn't have that yellow stem, then I'd probably call it sensu lato, and it'd be something closer to Cortinarius tiersii or Cortinarius semisanguineus.
Okay. So we found something. We found a tiersii out there that had much more yellow. It looked similar in that it was the top was a little shiny and the gills had a beautiful luster, but they were much more sort of orangey yellow, and that was tiersii. Okay. Cool. So that's again, you guys are learning as I'm learning here in real time. We have a couple look-alike mushrooms here. So if I put these side by side, can you guys tell what these are? Are they both hedgehogs? They both look like hedgehogs, right? But if we turn them over, boom. We have one has gills and one has tiny teeth. So this is Cuphophilus. Is it Pratensis or?
It would be if you found it in Europe.
Okay.
The ones in the West Coast don't have a name yet.
Okay, but you're going to sequence this and.
I've already sequenced a few, but I'll probably do some more.
Okay. At some point, someone will give it a name.
Yeah, at some point.
Alan has sequenced hundreds of new species, but has not necessarily named them. So I think we should start a petition to have Alan name a bunch of stuff. Maybe name them after Alan. I don't know. I don't think you really want that, but.
No.
So yeah, there's gills on this one, little teeth on this one. They look very similar. Apparently this is delicious, right? You said this is good?
They're both pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, hedgehogs are some of my absolute favorites. They'll last weeks in the fridge, whereas this...
Of the two, I think the Cuphophilus is better, but try them side by side and see what happens.
Okay, I will. Those are fighting words, man. Hedgehogs are good, but Alan says Cuphophilus is better than a hedgehog. So, we'll see.
They get real common in the spring. You never find very many. Like if you find 5 in a spot, that's a pretty good spot.
And we had a couple spots where we found 2 or 3. So we had, I think, like this is one of the better hauls I've ever had, and had like 3 or 4 of them. You know.
Yeah, that's a haul.
So also we found a good number of chanterelles out there. They weren't super big, but they're doing pretty well. Do you think this is Cantharellus formosus?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so it's kind of the most common golden one you'll find on the coast under Doug fir usually. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you see formosus with other species or just Doug fir?
It depends on who you ask.
Okay.
I don't notice it. Well, I mean, there are always like mixed conifers around, right? So you'd have to like find pure stems.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I mean, I really like the white one, the subalbidus, and I've seen that in mixed like pine and conifer. I can't decide that one as whether it's oak or what. Formosus almost always seems like Doug fir. And then there's the Canthorellus, was it Rosio canis? Or Rosio canis? That's the sort of the summertime one that's a little more pinky, a little more rainbow colored. And that seems to be pine associated mostly, but isn't super common down in our range compared to like up in Oregon, right? Where it's much more common.
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, that's at least in my experience. I found it in Oregon. I've like never really found it here.
People make a lot of theories about chanterelles, but they don't really DNA test them. So who knows how good their theories are? They call all sorts of chanterelles all different names.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a really important point, right? Unless you're doing all this vouchering, the sequencing, the microscopy, can you conclusively say, or with authority say that it's one thing versus another?
Very often you can, but not really with chanterelles.
Yeah, okay.
They don't really have a lot of microscopic differences or odor differences, or maybe the differences people think they're using to tell them apart are not consistent differences.
I see. So sequencing is really the only way with a chanterelle to like conclusively say?
I'd say it's the only way to learn, but once you've learned, you could probably tell them apart without sequencing.
Okay. So once you've kind of set like exactly what something is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's see what else we got here. We're almost done. Alan's got to run, but we're lucky that we had him for a little bit. So this is a great ascomycete fungi. It's called a Helvella, or an elfin saddle. There's finally in focus. It has this beautiful like fluted stem. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's like holes in the stem that you can actually see through this flutes in the stem. And it has this sort of weird black invaginated top. Oh yeah, there you go. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, really illuminate that thing. This one's so cool because you can actually see through like all the little holes. Maybe there's some bug damage inside, but these are mildly toxic ascomycetes.
I think they're edible.
Yeah, I mean, they are edible, but they're one of those ones that requires special preparation.
I don't think that's true.
Well, I mean, these are both technically toxic mushrooms, but if you ate them straight up, they could make you sick.
The one on the left could definitely make you kind of hallucinate or get sick. The one on the right I don't think anyone's really tried it, but I think the people that say that they're poisonous raw are just being paranoid.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think if you're going to cook these, my recommendation would be to potentially boil them once or twice to blow off any potential...
I've never done that and never had a problem.
Okay. Maybe a long cook time.
It doesn't hurt, but it would remove the flavor.
So yeah, you lose some flavor.
You always lose flavor when you boil something.
What I've done with these usually is I just dry them out, and then when I rehydrate them like I do morels and kind of mix them half and half in a cream sauce, and that flavor comes through pretty well. They have a much stronger flavor than morels. It's more earthy. It's not quite as pleasant, but they're still pretty good. And sometimes you'll find tons of them. So this is probably Helvella vespertina. It was growing under conifer, but you'll see Helvella dryophylla under oak here in Napa, and a lot of California. So let's talk about muscaria for a second. So this is, I mean, a lot of people say this is toxic. You've been telling me all weekend that like you like eating this mushroom in small amounts, but you have to recognize there may be some sort of psychotropic effect if you eat it.
I wouldn't say I like eating it.
Okay.
I mean, I like the taste.
Okay, so yeah, you like that they.
I like. Yeah, I mean, they're yummy.
Yeah, they're yummy.
They're about as good as Amanita villosa.
Okay, and that's just kind of cook them up with a little bit of butter in a pan, right? You're not. That's not doing the double boiling because the double boiling takes away the flavor.
Removes away a lot of flavor, so you kind of lose. I think it's the muscamal that is the flavor enhancer in these.
Okay, is this and the variety of this, because we have Amanita muscaria variety.
Flavia vulvata, and it's talking about the yellow vulva.
That's the
universal veil remnants.
Gotcha. So if we have, instead of really white, what are the really white dots?
That's Amanita muscaria sensu stricto.
Okay, just in a general.
And you would find that in Europe and maybe Alaska.
Mm-hmm. But there's also a lot of places where it's been imported on like lumber, like down in New Zealand. I've seen that. I think the European version down there.
Yeah, they might have both there. Mm-hmm. But and a lot of times it fades really quickly, so the warts are white anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can get bleached out by the sun, but this one's definitely like the yellow one, right?
Yeah, all the ones I've seen in California are pretty yellow.
Okay, well, cool. That's good to know. Let's see. We have a couple of these little cool boletes down here. These are, I think, Xerocomelus, right?
Xerocomelus.
Oh, Xerocoma. Sorry. So here's a good example. Two things that have similar names. I just got the names wrong. This is a Xerocomelus because we have this sort of red stipe, this like velvety purple top, and these like tight yellow pores. But then we have Xerocomus, which, how are these different? Because they also have sort of a suede top, but not the red on the stem.
Yeah, they don't have the red in the stem.
Do you think these are two different species?
No, those are the
same thing. Okay, it was just that one was a little more dried out than the other or something like that. I mean, I got this one yesterday. This one's from today. So, cool. And then here's a couple of cool little guys. There's a tiny little hygrocybe, this little waxy cap.
Hygrocybe reedii.
Reedia. Okay, and it was Miniata was the other sort of synonym for it that people say.
It's not a synonym, but Miniata grows elsewhere in the world. Reedii is a European name, but we also apply it here. It's got the same sequence, and it has a very mild honey odor.
Ooh. Okay, smell that. Yeah,
Hi.
I can kind of get that.
Get it? Yeah.
It's on the
It'd
spectrum
be
of
better
being.
if you had like a whole head.
Yeah, a whole bunch of. I mean, Brian had a bunch of them, but that's the one I brought home. And then this is some kind of little Leptonia, Entoloma kind of thing.
Cyanula, probably.
Cyanula. So we found a lot of Leptonia out there. I think Alan was just saying, if we'd spent the whole day looking for Leptonia, we probably could have found, well, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 different species. Like,
Yeah, there was a lot of them.
there's a lot of them. We found, what, 5 distinct species at least?
I photographed 2.
2. Okay. Well, you
Myself, few
collected.
more, definitely.
But you got a few yesterday too, didn't you? Or is it just the same species yesterday?
I think it was the same one. We were getting the Coriolata.
Okay. Seriolata. Cool. Oh, what was the other thing that was like an Entoloma that we...
Oh, and Tasabi.
Okay, Entossaby. That was because I was counting that in my head as
Oh, yeah.
the same. But it was,
Which you can. It is Entoloma.
right. So this is an Entoloma. This is the midnight Entoloma. This is Entoloma medianox, right?
Yeah.
And this one smells kind of like cucumber. I think it's a halfway decent edible.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. Just like sauteed in butter. There's some mushrooms that I don't really like them sauteed in butter. Like even the chanterelles, I don't love just straight butter. I kind of like doing other things. But this one, yeah, it's a good flavor. A little cucumbery. I don't know. Is there anything else on here that you want to talk about?
I think there's this one.
Yeah.
This one. Here's Gomphidius subroseus.
Oh yeah.
So it's a little broken one, but these are really slimy. They're parasitic on Swillis, so like the pine spikes. They got jet black spores. There's not that many black spored mushrooms. Here's the pellicle. So they got the separable gelatinous pellicle. It's peeling off pretty good.
Gelatinous pellicle.
Yeah.
Yum.
And here's Gymnopilus. So this one, you don't see it too often, but it's around. It's Gymnopilus oregonensis. So named after Oregon. It's got a smooth cap. Doesn't really stain blue, so probably not one of the hallucinogenic Gymnopilus. But I'm sure it's never been tested, so you never really know.
This one would be UV reactive, right? If we put a
I think all the
light on it.
Gymnopilus are UV reactive. Here is Alboleptonia adnatifolia. So it's like a little Entoloma thing. It's got pink spores, but it's all white. And you'll see this really commonly under redwood forests, especially in the spring.
Let's see. Oh, we also got a big old thing of candy caps. So this is Lactarius rubidus. Great mushroom that smells kind of like maple. These grow with Doug fir, pine, tan oak. They're pretty common. Hemlock too. Okay.
Coarse live oak.
And the thing you want to be really careful when you're collecting these is that you smell them and they smell like maple. And if you're not good at smelling maple, there should be at least a little bit of latex that comes out of them that's kind of white or clear.
And also the rough cap surface is really distinctive. The lookalikes will have smooth or slimy caps, whereas these have a rough, dry cap.
Also, if you look at the bottom, there's often a little bit of a couple of hairs in the bottom, and some of the other lookalikes don't have those.
Yeah, and the stem will snap like chalk.
Yeah, the brittle stem is a huge... So we found Lacaria, that kind of looks like them. We found Tubaria, that kind of looks like them.
Rotofana.
And the Rotofana. So the Rotofana and the Lacaria are growing out of the ground like these would be, and then the Tubaria were growing out of wood. So
yeah, or wood in the ground. You have the Lactarius luculentus and Lactarius subvisitus, which have a little bit slimier caps.
Okay. And yeah, you just want to make sure you have that kind of nice maple smell and not... You can always take a tiny bite of it too and see if it's spicy, because I think some of the other ones that are lookalikes and aren't good to eat would be spicy.
Yeah, though you don't have to be that paranoid. I don't think any of the lookalikes are poisonous except for Galerina marginata.
Yeah, well, there's Lactarius xanthogalactus, which people...
If you cook that would be edible.
Really?
Yeah, all Lactarius are edible if you cook them.
Okay, so only raw? So it's like if you dried it out and got it wrong, then it would be poisonous? Or...
I've never tried them dry.
Okay.
But I don't think any of those
I just
are
usually,
poisonous.
when we talk about, Lactarius, I tell people to avoid the xanthogalactus
it's that
one.
spicy chemical, but those spicy chemicals go away when you dry them.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I mean, so there's a certain amount of mushroom processing that you can do to make stuff a lot safer. But then there are much like a death cap, or there's certain amanitas and certain galeranas, like you're talking about, that are toxic no matter what you do to them. So you want to be really careful.
I think if you boil a death cap 100 times, it likely would be edible. But
Yeah.
also, death caps have cumulative toxins, so if you don't get enough to poison you, it might just kind of piss off your liver.
Yeah.
And you don't really want to do that. You need your liver.
Yeah, you kind of we're a lot happier with liver. Cool. Well, I will give you guys one more look at our board here. It's pretty cool. Lots of awesome mushrooms, pretty ones, edible ones, lots of fun ones. Alan's giving me a little extra light here so you can see without all the shadows in my kitchen. Candy caps, scaber stock, lexinum. We got the midnight entoloma. We got the say the name of the rhizopogon. It's
Rhizopogon occidentalis.
Yes. And what's this the guild bolete again? It's
Phylloporus erinicola.
Ooh, Phylloporus. Okay, see, I gotta every time you say it. Okay, and our hedgehogs, our hydnums are
Hydnum oregonense, because they're going with tan oak.
Dope.
Every time I say it, I try to pronounce something differently so nobody feels bad for pronouncing it wrong.
I love it. I love it. It's amazing. This beautiful Xerocomelus. We have all these Krugomphus. Probably you said vinicolor most likely, or
Yeah.
like that. This beautiful red Smithii.
Cortinarius smithii. Yeah.
Smithii with this tiny little bolete button is a little adorable one. I'll eat that later. Xerocomus, these beautiful pores. What was this one? This is the something albos.
Alboleptonia adneidifolia.
Alboleptonia. Okay, cool. We have a little Gymnopolis there. The Gomphidius, our Helvella. We have, of course, our Amanita muscaria, star of the show.
Hygrossibiridii. Leptonia.
Perfect.
Sinula, actually.
Sinula. And then, yeah, just some nice little chanterelles. Kind of basic, but pretty good. So, I'm going to reverse the camera. There's Alan. There's me. There's Sean. Hi, Sean. Yeah, it's been fun. We had a really good time in Mendo, right?
That was great,
That
yeah.
was cool. We did a lot of, like, microscopy. Got to see Alan doing his thing with a camera and UV, and it's just, like, mind-blowing and fun. Someone's saying hi. So, anyhow, hey, high five, Sean. High five. Brian's over there. He's busy, but high five, Brian. Cool. I'm going to go. Thanks, guys. It's been fun. Hopefully you enjoyed this and learned something. Bye.